What'd you think of the intro? I made it myself. Get it? I made it myself because I'm in the intro. Okay, enough with the bad jokes. Let's get on with the show. I haven't made a video in a little while because of numerous reasons, but that's okay because I'm back. But about what the intro actually introduces, this show is Science or Not with me, Oblivious Alsk. It's a show where I talk about sciencey stuff that you didn't know you were interested in. Now, since I haven't made a video in a little while, there's been a lot of science stuff in the last, 15 weeks that I would like to report on. But unfortunately, YouTube users don't have that big of an attention span. And neither do I. So instead of me talking about the really big stuff, like CERN discovering the Higgs boson, or seeing that giant ice asteroid almost vaporize into the sun, I'm going to be talking about the stories that maybe you haven't heard about but are still really interesting and more or less groundbreaking. But if you are interested in that big stuff, Google is your friend. So first thing, it's going to make you wish you were the nerdy gamer type. And if you are the nerdy gamer type, you're going to wish you're even more of a nerdy gamer type. All this has the reason being that gamers, of all people, have actually figured out the structure to an enzyme in an AIDS-like virus that scientists have been trying to figure out for decades. The target was specifically a monomeric protease enzyme that is a cutting agent in the complex molecular tailoring of retroviruses that include HIV. Now, I'm not a biologist, and I'm actually not too fond of biology, so I have no idea what I just said. But I do know that in order to figure out how to beat a virus, or anything for that matter, you have to figure out how it works. And the first step in doing that is determining its composition or structure. Now, the reason scientists couldn't do this for the longest time is that a biologist's main thing to use when they want to determine something is a microscope. Now, the problem with microscopes is that they only allow the viewer a 2D perspective of whatever is being analyzed. With proteins being the analyte in question, they basically look like a big bowl of spaghetti. And that doesn't really tell us anything about structure. It just kind of tells us that it's noodly. Protein, spaghetti. Protein, spaghetti. And just in case you couldn't tell the difference. So in 2008, the University of Washington made a game called Fold It that is fun to play and actually has useful information produced when you win. The basis of this game is that the player uses various tools that are actually used in modern biology to unfold amino acid chains, which are the things that make up proteins and hence viruses. In this case, gamers were split into teams and worked on figuring out how to unravel this amino acid. And they did it in only 3 weeks. It took gamers 3 weeks to figure out what scientists have been trying to do for decades. Gamers have such ingenuity and spatial reasoning due to the sheer creativeness they employ in everyday gaming. You know, trying to figure out like some sort of 3D puzzle that they're doing, whatever gamers do these days. I kind of am one, but not so much anymore because of college. But anyway, it's this ingenuity and spatial reasoning that's never been directed to a truly useful cause. But now it has been, and we're one step closer to figuring out how to cure AIDS. So, thank you, gamers. What? What'd you say? Just wanted to say thanks. Can't be helped. So see all you parents out there who have kids who play video games? The games can be useful. Who knew? New subject. Next up is actually a duo of completely different stories that are oddly very similar. But let's go one at a time. It's one of the strangest yet coolest nature anomalies I have ever seen.
Hey guys, I'm a shark.
Crazy, isn't it? That's a shark! And as it turns out, an incredibly rare discovery and first of its kind. This shark fetus has what's known as cyclopia, which has been observed in several kinds of animals, even humans. I don't think I have to explain cyclopia because it's pretty obvious what happens if you have it. But believe it or not, that eye would actually function if the shark had been born. But sadly, although as you'll find out in a minute, not all that sadly, the shark was never born. A fisher legally caught a pregnant dusky shark in the Gulf of California, cut it open, and discovered a litter of 10 sharks, one of which was this odd white thing with a bulbous head and one eye. Well, it would have probably been alive when it was born, but there really is nothing saying that it would actually have survived. After all, in addition to being stark white, making it pretty visible to predators, and only one eye making depth perception impossible, it had a deformed tail fin, no nostrils, and no spinal cord. Now, a deformed tail and no nostrils would make it hard enough to survive, but no spinal cord? Yeah, you're dead. In any case, you might be worrying that whatever caused these deformities might spread to other sharks. And next thing you know, all the sharks are these genetically deformed white things. But no, that's not the case. Pollution was ruled out as the cause for these deformities, and you just have to realize that sometimes weird stuff happens in nature. However, that sometimes may be a little more often than you think. Because for the second story in this duo, coincidentally in China a Cyclops pig was born. Also, just like the Cyclops shark had other deformities, this pig has 2 snouts. Because of these 2 snouts, it couldn't be breastfed like its siblings, so the owners had to take care of it and actually decided to keep it as a pet. That's one weird pet.
Oink. Feed me, I'm cute.
As for if pollution had a toll in making this Cyclops pig, I have no idea. But just like the shark, it was most likely nature mixing things up a bit. So yeah, nature, it's a pretty freaky thing.
New subject.
Now as our last story, a cool video hit the internet in mid-October, where, well, just take a look.
So it's actually floating above the surface.
Yeah, it's not floating, it's locked above the surface.
So you could tilt it at an angle and it would
Yeah,
still fly
I can
around.
do like this and it will just go around like this.
That's so cool. You may be thinking, where's my hover car? I want one. Yes, that's totally what you sound like, by the way. But unfortunately, it's not that simple. But I'll try to give you an explanation that'll make it as simple as possible. But anyway, the thing that you see in the video that looks like floating dry ice,
The superconductor.
yeah, that thing, is actually an inert crystal sapphire wafer. No, not that kind of wafer, although they are tasty. However, this wafer is covered with the superconducting material yttrium barium copper oxide. I hope I'm saying that right. Which isn't exactly tasty. But back to science. When a superconductor gets cold, and I mean really cold, like liquid nitrogen cold, it conducts electricity with no energy loss, or at least negligible energy loss. Also when they're cold, they absolutely despise magnetic fields. It's kind of like me and blue cheese. Stop purposefully putting mold in my perfectly good cheese. But that's besides the point. The superconductor in question, however, is not perfect, and has little imperfections that the magnetic field can pass through. When this happens, the wafer gets locked in all 3 dimensions. Forward, backward, side to side, up and down, those 3. Also known to science and math people as the X, Y, and Z axes. But this just means it gets stuck, floating there. Looking awesome. Okay, now that you know all the technical stuff, let's get back to your question. Yes, where's my hover car? Is that more like what you sound like? You kind of sound like old people. But anyway, random annoying person, cars are heavy, and so are you, no offense. But that means the magnetic field would have to be really strong in order to keep all this metal and you up. Well, what about a hoverboard? These attempts are just getting worse and worse, aren't they? But remember that whole cold as liquid nitrogen thing? That's not exactly easy to do. Especially if you want to keep your hoverboard on for prolonged periods of time. And just think about standing on it. I know in that video that guy touched it with his bare hands, but only for short periods of time. That being said, this superconductor had to be cold, but that doesn't mean there aren't superconductors out there that don't have to be. The only problem with that is that we haven't discovered them yet. So you gamers out there, here's another challenge for you. Make a room temperature superconductor that can be used as a coating on a wafer to produce quantum locking that can be made into a hoverboard, and perhaps society will accept gaming as something more than just a fun yet worthless pastime. Alright, there's more science out there, but that's enough for now. Hopefully I can keep doing these throughout the semester now that I have quite a bit lighter load in college than I did last term, which was basically me going, so much work, the entire time. But if you'd like any more information on any of the stories I talked about today, all of the links for them are in the drop-down bar below, including a bonus story that I did not talk about the oldest fossil ever discovered. Also, if you have any suggestions for something you want me to talk about, just let me know in the comments on YouTube, Facebook, email, whatever you do. And I just might talk about it. In fact, the quantum locking story was a suggestion. And also, if you liked the video, click the like button, and if you really liked the video, click the subscribe button. I can't offer you anything except for saying thanks, and hopefully the prospect of making more of these videos to tell you more about science. So until next time, ciao.